Good evening and welcome to QTV. We have got an amazing lineup of guests here this evening.
Chatting with ceramic artist Ursula Dutkiewicz, who's passionate about reforestation and using art to fund the planting of trees.
We continue our Glimpses into Asia series, enjoying the cabaret show at Mixwell Bar in Bali.
First Nations writer Nayuka Gorrie talks about her role being to bear witness on current events for the future.
And our Moments in Time segment this week looks at Monte Punshon, who was a 106-year-old lesbian here in Melbourne and a diamond figure.
My name's Ursula Dutkiewicz. I'm a ceramic artist. I was born in South Australia in Adelaide. Dad was part of the influx of post-war immigrants, and he was already an artist. He'd been helped in the Polish resistance and found himself in a displaced persons camp, and he came to Adelaide. My mother was the immigrant worker and she took migrants into the home, and that's how my mum and my dad met. As soon as we could paint, as little children, we were given paintbrushes, and it was a very exciting time in Adelaide's history. It was a very conservative town, and there was my father. He had seen the work of Kandinsky's and had spent a year at the Paris Art School and had so much experience that he brought to the Adelaide art scene. That. So, my father drank a lot. As I grew into teenagehood, it was very difficult times. When my brother was painting cartoons on the walls of our house, I was painting women's symbols, much to the horror of the rest of the family. And at that point it was, you know, why do you hate men so much? I said, I don't hate men, I actually just don't like the male system, the patriarchal system. So that's where it all took off, and to this day I'm still doing that, but in different ways. I moved over the road on my 17th birthday into a communal household. They were quite wild times and we were very free. People moved in and we had a wonderful women's household. I started hanging around in pubs that a lot of women frequented, the lesbian bars. I decided that that's what I wanted to pursue in my life. Then I found the political feminist crowd and I was really excited about that. I remember walking into a pub and seeing a woman drumming, and I was really excited because women in those days there weren't many musicians around. You could count them on one hand basically. I then found my way into a women's band. It was very political in those days. I decided I'll try for art school. I'm enjoying doing this. And I was sitting there with my painted terracotta pots, and the ceramic teachers came past and said, "You are going to do ceramics, aren't you?" And I just nodded my head and said, "Yes, of course I am." And that's how I got in. And then I found clay was my thing. I'm actually making a commission for someone. I had a commission to make these cockatoos to go up on the top of a building. And someone saw it and asked me if I would make them 10. So this is the first one, and they're going to be a surprise for someone as presents later in the year. And I'm very happy to be making it, and I'll lift it so you can see what it's going to look like. That's what it's looking like. So it'll shrink 10%, 14% possibly, so it'll be a bit smaller than this, but it'll be able to hang on the wall. Clay is the most versatile, amazing material. I love it. Being a little kid playing with mud for me. Various heights. Touching it, squishing it, pressing it, pounding it. It's because you can do so much with it, but you know, your hands are in it. Not everyone loves everything you do, but you find a home for everything, or they remain with me. Failure is one of your biggest teachers. It's fantastic. Fail away. Fail away and we learn. I remember my life, the last 30 years, through the different projects and things that I've created. So I like that's my memory. I create really varied things. I've always said yes to everything, and that has led me into community arts. It's led me into my own expression and photography, and now even environmental art. These little red ones I started gifting out into the world just as an act of love, and then this year I decided I had to turn them green, and they plant trees. So they fund the planting of trees through Tree Sisters, and their aim is to reforest the tropics. Each heart I sell for $20 plants 40 trees. It's so simple to plant trees. I've funded the planting of thousands of trees. Women all over the world are getting on board. It's a reforestation revolution fueled by the love and generosity of women around the world. In the next couple of years, tree planting is going to become one of the major ways of helping turn the planet around. This is what the green hearts help with. The tree is life. Ta-da! Work that one out. With the clay, you go so deep, you know, and there's so many processes involved. It's not just one thing. Like painting, you sit there and paint. With clay, you have to make, and you have to keep coming back to it. It's going to dry, and then you're going to have to fire it, and then you might have to glaze it, and then you have to pack it in a kiln, and then you have to get it out of the kiln. So each time, for me, is a not a labour. It's just a love, touching it each time, and all those processes, they're fantastic. Each step of the way. I really enjoy being on my own. My art is my passion and my focus, but I'm also open to whatever happens in my life. For me, clay, when I'm using it, I'm playing with it. That's very much the joy of it for me. And now I love teaching it, and I find it easy. And because I was given creativity as a gift as a child with no restraints, I find it very easy to be creative and to share that with people.
Coming up now, we take a look at the colour and excitement of the Mixwell Bar in Bali.
Next, Nayuka Gorrie, who spoke on Joy 94.9's Saturday Magazine. Then we'll remember Monte Punshon, the world's oldest lesbian.
I don't really consider myself an activist, primarily because I don't really do I don't do organising or that sort of thing. My role in, I guess, any sort of fight is primarily as a writer. So that's my work, and I think the role of the writer is to bear witness, but also I think I'm really interested in kind of I'm interested in history and how we'll look back, say 30 years from now, and I think writing is a good way to document the things that are happening now, so that, say the next generation or the generation after can see what was happening. Because I look at writers like, and this is by no means a comparison at all, but writers like James Baldwin, I think, did a really good job of capturing what was happening at the time.
Where did you draw your inspiration from? Is it about your family? Is it about you? Do you observe other people in their family life? Yeah, I think I've been thinking a lot about observation. I think that's primarily where it comes from. So looking at the world, and also like, what things are we talking about? What should we be talking about? And what voices do we need to hear? I think some things I don't need to write about. Like, we're not always the right person to write that thing. But also something I've been more interested in lately, I've done a lot less publishing this year, thinking about the quiet, unspoken things. So I think, I'm interested in the things that we aren't talking about. Something I wrote recently was called Psycho White Dream Girls, which was published by Kill Your Darlings, and that was around, I guess in a roundabout way, it was about colonial anger and revenge, and I don't think that's something we get to talk about. So it was relying on pop culture, but also academic writing to make the point. That wasn't reactive to anything that was happening, like, in my immediate surroundings, but it was something that I couldn't stop thinking about. So those are the things that are really driving me at the moment, the obsessive thoughts that, I'm sure we all have them, but that's been a big motivator. I also, traditionally I wrote a lot from a place of anger, and I was just on a panel about, as a part of Queer Motions, about anger. I think anger can be a really generative emotion when it comes to writing.
Well, it certainly, gets the fire going in your belly and gives you the impetus. And I think that one of the challenges, of course, that we face at the moment is we're in a sort of an atmosphere of outrage and anger and outrage, responding to each other and responding to other commentators is often what fuels a lot of writing. So it's great to know that you're also working on educating and writing about things that are unspoken or less spoken. And Kill Your Darlings is a really beautiful literary publication for listeners who may not be aware, but you can read some fantastic writers in that particular publication. Switching guards a little bit here, I really want to talk about the birthing trees on the Western Highway because I'm sure that you have an insight that we can share with our listeners, and I want to make sure that people are really aware of what's going on there.
The Victorian government is looking to extend the Western Freeway. It'll save, I think according to their estimates, it'll save around 2 minutes on the Western Freeway, or 3 minutes, sorry. The problem is there are nearly 1,000-year-old trees, sacred trees, that are significant for our people. So my grandmother's a Djapurrung woman, Sandra Onus. She's been one of the people leading the fight out there. There are a whole bunch of people camped out there at the moment and have been camped out there for around over a year to protect the trees and to protect our culture and the land. People are still fighting to protect it. There's been a lot of back and forth in legal action. There's been a lot of solidarity from a bunch of different people in the queer community. The Trades Hall went and did a blockade recently, and there have been Aboriginal people from all over Victoria come out to support. Australia is often spoken about as a young country, and I understand as a colonial nation it is only pretty recent. But the Australia that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people know is much, much older, and this is a part of our history and our heritage. The way that people cried for the Notre Dame is, you know, that is the way that we feel about our sacred sites.
Monte Punshon, Monty to her friends, was born in Ballarat in 1889 and died in Melbourne 106 years later. In 1929, at the age of 47, she went to Japan with a friend, a trip that was to profoundly change her life. She became a lover of all things Japanese and a supporter of Japanese people in Australia. Towards the end of her life, she received a very high award from the Japanese government for her services to understanding of Japan. Monty never married. She lived what we would today call a lesbian life, and she knew, she says, from the age of 6 that she would never marry a man. The first great love of her life was a woman called Debbie, who broke up with her in 1926, leaving her devastated. But in fact, she found solace with her group of friends, camp male friends, who she called her homosexual boyfriends. One of the interesting facts about Monty is that she kept scrapbooks in which she pasted clippings of all kinds of unconventional women: aviators, car enthusiasts, explorers, cross-dressers, even the occasional artistic nude. It's very much an expression of her desire and her interest in women of an unconventional nature. For her 100th birthday, some friends took her to Penny's, a lesbian night which was organised here at the Prince of Wales by Jan Hillier, a famous entrepreneur of the gay community. She was amazed. "Goodness," she said, "I wouldn't have thought that there were this many lesbians in the whole world, let alone in Melbourne." It was about this time too that she was interviewed by City Rhythm, and she became therefore a much loved figure in the gay community and came to be dubbed as the world's oldest lesbian. Asked late in life if she had advice for young people, she said, "Cast out fear, look forward and have a goal. There are so many new and wonderful things to discover in life." A lesson for all of us, I think.
Wow, what a fantastic effort. 106 years old.
I know, can you imagine to live to that age and to have seen the changes and what life was like when she was born versus when she actually died?
Yeah, absolutely. Such big changes, like electricity.
Indeed, indeed. And also great there to see a modern protester there, Nayuka Gorrie, talking so passionately about the Indigenous world and what it means to her. So that's it from QTV again for this evening. From myself and Tess, we wish you a very good evening. Join us next time for more QTV.
Bye for now.